Good morning, everybody. Funneling in. How are we all doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world. I want to give a celebration to Trudy, who's in my good books already for being the keenest person and the first person in the meeting today. Very, very good effort. Nice one. I will give it a couple of minutes to see some other people funneling in, and then we'll crack on. And there will be some tardy slips. So Trudy, I think you can give them out at the very end. If people are coming in a little bit late, give them a stern looking. All right, no worries. Alrighty, it is 3 minutes past. So I think we will kick off. We will actually start with a very quick run through of the school first in Central. And then we'll move into the dashboard. So that way any sort of latecomers won't actually miss sort of the key part of this. So and at the very end, and we'll go through a Q&A if we have any questions, and we'll also stop for questions throughout as well. So please just chime in either in the chat if you have questions along the way, and like I said, then we'll stop at each sort of part that makes sense, and we can jump in as well. So I will share my screen. There we go. Just a quick thumbs up if we can see that. Nice one. All righty. Okay, so welcome to our first dashboard session of the third quarter. And we are going to run through what it's like to land in Central for the first time. So I'm sure this has probably happened to a lot of you already, but this is going to be a quick recap. There might be some things that you sort of haven't seen the first time going around or haven't really played with yet. So I'm going to sort of go in as if this is the first time you've ever seen it. Yeah, like I said, hopefully you'll pick something up along the way. So when you first land in the school here, this is going to be the activity feed. So this is sort of a Facebook style feed where you can post and comment. At the top here is the what's on your mind box. So we call our posts what's on your mind posts, just because that's the prompt here. So if you want to start the discussion, input your stuff there and click post. It's as simple as that. Below this little box here, you'll see that there's 3 little links or filters, and that's going to filter your activity feed with what's on your mind post, WOYM. So you can just see the sort of conversation that's happening. You can also filter only by deliverables and activity. So that way you'll see people's pink sheets that they've created. You'll also see things like the events that have been posted that are coming up, as well as session replays that have been posted. If you've missed a session, you'll see them pop up in deliverables and activity. So you can search for, so you can filter just for that. Or you can also just filter for everything and see everything that's happening. So that's the main activity feed or activity stream here. And then on the left, we have a bunch of these little menus. And I'm kind of just going to go through them, basically, I suppose, one by one. So deliverables, pretty self-explanatory, right? This is where you'll see all everybody's deliverables that they've posted. It's basically a stream of those deliverables. And if you're wanting to add your own deliverable, you do this in the top right here with this big plus. So let's go to that and have a quick look at what that looks like in case you haven't posted any yet. Across the top here, you choose what kind of deliverable you want. Your title, summary, upload the actual PDF if there is one, or a text file, etc. And then you can choose your tags, and you can go ahead and publish that. The only difference up here is if it's a pink sheet, you get to choose how many you're doing. So quite often you might think, okay, I might upload 5 pink sheets at a time, 5 PDFs at a time. And that way it just makes sure that it's sort of counting all your pink sheets correctly. Because what you will find is that when you do your 101th pink sheet, is that you'll get a nice surprise in the activity feed and people will be able to see that as well. So that's what we're aiming for in the deliverables there. And then on the left, again, we're going to go to live sessions. So you'll see Tara has very studiously posted all these here. So these are the upcoming sessions, the dashboard one we're in at the moment, and all the upcoming ones as well. After this session, Tara will download the replay, cut it up a little bit, and post it here. And this is where you'll see all the replays from all the previous sessions that have happened. And you can go into any of them and watch the videos of that session. Then we also on the left have the curriculum lessons. So I'm sure you're very familiar with that, but we'll just quickly run through it. So you have your curriculum here, and mainly on the right side, you've got a sort of tree style interface where you can go and have a look at all the different lessons that there are. You can also search the curriculum here, and that does like a text search strat, and shows up, where you've searched, and you can click into one of those as well. So the curriculum, I'm sure you're familiar with that one. Lots of videos, lots of good stuff in there. I'll skip over. Let's go to templates as well. Why not? We're here, aren't we? So templates, these are actually embedded within curriculum. You'll see when I click templates, it actually goes to curriculum lessons, and that's just actually a section here in curriculum. And these are going to be things like your pink sheet template, the cluster checklist, etc., etc. So they're just helpful stuff that you'll want to download and use as you go. Now we'll move on to the bookcase. So as it says, the bookcase is a bookcase, a digital bookcase of all the books our students have created and published over their time in Central. So you can have a look through all those. If you give one a click, you'll see it pops open here with a bunch of details about that book. You can also filter by who's written them, and there are also categories for the books which you can search through as well. And then on the left, we have people as well. Okay, so this is going to be a interactive sort of geography map, like Google Map style interface of all the students in Central at the moment. So you can see all our students, you can see them plotted on the map as well. So you can sort of zoom in, and that's a live filters as you look around, where you can maybe see where people are from. If you click on one of these areas, and it'll sort of zoom in. And wonder if you can find me on there. I think that's me there. Yep, nice in sunny northern England at the moment. So you can also search by name if you're somebody in particular that maybe you've met recently. You can search by area. So if I want to put in, Melbourne, etc. You can also search for expertise as well. So if you have forgotten, maybe when you've edited your profile or set up your profile at the very start, you're asked to choose 3 of these expertise, and that's how those are used to filter you on the map here, so you can actually be found. So if you haven't set your expertise yet, go and edit your profile and set that up as well. And also, obviously, your location, because if we don't know where you are, we can't put you on the map. You will show up down here, but you just won't show up on the map really nicely. So good idea to keep those things updated. Now, do we have any questions so far about just the school in general, about navigating that around? If you do, maybe just throw in a question in the chat there. Oops, get that out of the way. No. Alrighty, hopefully that wasn't too much of a quick overview, and we will dive straight into the dashboard now, I think. Good stuff. Okay, so dashboard. So I'm going to go in as if, again, this is the first time you've seen the dashboard. Again, some of this might be familiar to you, some of it might be new information. And again, once we've gotten to the end of this dashboard session, we can have a Q&A about the dashboard specifically. So when you hit the dashboard, this is what you're going to see. Really, really empty, really bare. And the first thing you're going to probably want to do is create a cluster. So let's go and have a shot at doing that. So I'm not going to get you to do this as we go. It's probably going to be a little bit too quick. So I think what I'd prefer you to do, just try and absorb as much as you can. Obviously, there will be recordings as well, so you can go back and rewatch them. But I think it'd be best just to sort of watch and try to absorb as we go. So the add cluster button, hopefully in the future of your, at the time you'll have in Central, you'll be doing lots of these clusters. So clicking the add cluster button, edit the cluster, and we're going to fill it in. So I'm going to do my first cluster here. Cluster. I'm going to fill in a message, mark it, and a mode. I'm going to have to select one of these. These are the basic things for a cluster, but also if you have them, ideally, we're going to be filling out all these kinds of things as well. So if you've got a green sheet, you can click that to upload it. Position matrix, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to save that cluster. Okay. And once we've created that, it's going to save it up here. It's going to automatically shorten this name because we don't have too much space here. So it's just going to take out, it's going to do a few smart things and try and figure out what you think, what it thinks is the best thing to show. But in this case, it said my. Now our cluster's been created, so we can start putting in targets and data into that cluster. But before we do that, I just want to show you if you want to archive a cluster, that is, say for instance, you failed a cluster or you're not doing it anymore, that kind of thing. You can edit the cluster, so you can edit all the other details as well while we're in here. You can also scroll down to the very bottom and click deactivate cluster. Now, deactivating a cluster doesn't delete any of the data in there. It's always going to be there. It just means that it hides it from here and it puts it in a little menu on the right. And we do that just so that as you start building clusters as you go, they're not all sort of stacked up and taking up space if you're not running those clusters anymore. You can always reactivate a cluster. So, a year or two down the track when you realize, oh, this market's a little different, or maybe I'll go into that, try it again, then you can reactivate that if that makes sense for you. So yeah, it's just not deleting data, I suppose, is the main sort of important thing I want to stress there. Okay. Okay, so we have our cluster here. And to sort of start a cluster, what we're going to do is set some targets. So a cluster is based on the targets for a cluster is based on a quarter. So everything in here is based on a quarter. So we're going to set targets for the current quarter. And we do that for each cluster. So say if you had 3 clusters, you'd be going through each of your 3 clusters and setting the targets for that cluster for the current quarter. So I'll run through how you set your targets. So for approaches, for instance, we're going to click in here and we're going to just choose a target number. Now, each of them are going to have a little bit of helpful text and a video from Nicole Fink to explain exactly what an approach might be, what a meeting might be. And yes, there is a way of editing the targets once you've set them. So I'll show you an example. So let's do 20 approaches here. And we click save. And now you can see we've got approaches and we've got our target over here, 20. And if you want to start adding data, this is how you'll start adding your approaches. Now, I'll just give you a quick note for approaches. What we see sometimes, and this is all, I suppose, what works best for you, but what we would recommend is that approach is usually a one-to-one encounter. So quite often for our students, that means a phone call. What we try and stress it doesn't mean is an email. So for instance, well, mostly email blasts. So if you send an email blast out to 1,000 people, we wouldn't say that's 1,000 approaches. We really want to try and stress it's sort of more one-on-one kind of interaction. And if you do actually try and input too many approaches or a target that's too high, a pop-up will come up and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? We recommend that approaches are XYZ, and you can watch that video as well. So again, try and do it that way. If it does make more sense to you, the dashboard's at your service, so use it as, however you want to. That's kind of what we recommend. But back to the targets here. So I've set the target to be 20 for the approaches. Now, if I want to edit the approach targets, I can just click on that. And then I've got this button in the bottom right here, edit target, and it takes us back to that. So let's just go 25, for instance, save that, and it updates here again. So the approaches in the past and future. So when we're adding targets, they're all just for the current quarter. It doesn't make sense to add targets in the past, but we can add data into the past, and I'll show you that once we go into a different interface. But for now, let's just think about the targets in the current quarter, because I'm going to set some of these as well. So say, for instance, you're doing 25 approaches, might be 15 meetings. We might do 5 proposals. And let's just put in a sales target. That's and a delivery, whatever it might be. Okay, so we've added all our targets into our first cluster here. And then as time goes on and we're going to start doing these actual things, we're going to actually start adding in the data. So sorry, Kirsten, yeah, okay, so I'll just clarify that now. So Kirsten's asked in terms of the data that we're adding, can we do it in the past or in the future? We can. So when we're adding data into the dashboard, traditionally what we like to say is, we want to be adding the data when it comes in. So, if you've done a bunch of approaches for the day, you come to the dashboard, you say, what have I done today? Let's go and put those approaches in the dashboard. Same for sales, right? The idea is coming back here. It's meant to be an accountability tool that you really use and really at the start, might be a little bit annoying because that's that extra piece of work you've got to do. The idea being that as time goes on, it starts to be sort of a reward cycle that you get into, and start enjoying using the dashboard, getting all your data in there, trying to hit those targets, really actually make sure that that's part of, the culture, not just of the community, but of yourself. The accountability is really strong there. So that's sort of the aim we're doing. So when an approach happens, you come in here and you say, cool, I've done 3 approaches today. I'm going to choose today that I've done them. And you could add a note if you'd like to, and click save. And now you can see we've got the approaches start tallying up so that aiming or moving towards the target that you've set here. So let's say I do now, let's do another 13 approaches, for instance, today, or let's do 12. And boom, so we're coming up here. So now we're 15 out of 25 approaches. So as you start adding in all this data, it'll show you how far you are towards that target that you set. Okay, so as we start adding data into our clusters, it will now show up in our practice progress. So I'll go back to that, and that's sort of where we started, but now we've actually got data in here, so it sort of makes a bit more sense. So we can see this looks like a similar interface to the cluster, but this is actually all the clusters added up. So say, for instance, you had a few different clusters with a few different approach targets. All those targets would be added up for this current quarter. So you might have, 25 for one cluster, 15 for another, 10 for another, that sort of thing. And that's going to all add up here in total. And again, all the data you're actually putting in as well, that will all tally up across those clusters for the current quarter. You'll see here that there's also this other sort of darker, maybe you can see that in the screen share, but there's this darker gray line here as well. And that indicates how far we are through the current quarter. So if the start of the quarter was here and the end of the quarter is here, we are, a little bit further than halfway, which kind of makes sense. We're on the, the 21st of August. So that's a bit further than halfway through the quarter. So that gives you an indication of, for instance, meetings. If we're only this far in meetings, but it's this far through the quarter, we're going to have to do a lot of catch up to sort of get to our target of 15 by the end of the quarter. Similarly, for proposals, we're actually over the average of what we would need to continue to get to our target 5 by the end of the quarter there. So that's these 5 sections. On the right here, we have pink sheets. So pink sheets, you will add in the deliverable section, which we saw earlier. And as you add pink sheets, if you add 1 or even more of them, they'll add up here. And again, we like to say, 25 is the target that we have for pink sheets every quarter. The idea being that in about a year, there'll be 101 pink sheets. So this is just going to count up as you add the pink sheets automatically. And try and get you to 25 in this quarter. And then curriculum. So curriculum is going to come from the tests that you do in the curriculum. So I'm actually just going to quickly go to that. So let's just jump to the school, and we're going to go to curriculum lessons. Okay. Now, as part of each of these 5 main topics here, at the end of each one, you'll see a test. So let's click on the test here. Actually, maybe I'll go click on one I've done. So this green here indicates that I've actually started doing this test. I'll go to this one instead, I think. Okay. Cool. Okay, so at the end of each one of these, we're going to have a test, and this is going to be a, some checkboxes, some answers here, and completing this little quiz. As you complete that, that'll complete this little green bar, and that's for each of these 5. And then as you do that, then the curriculum counter here will start adding up. So do all those tests and the curriculum will fill up. Now, curriculum is the one here that isn't based on the current quarter. So you just do the curriculum and it'll be, whatever you have, that'll be that forever. It won't reset. Whereas what you will find is the dashboard, what you're looking at here, will reset every quarter. Now, the data isn't gone. It's just that we're focusing on the next quarter again. But you can see the past data that you've added in and edit it and do that kind of thing. So let's go and have a look at what that might look like. So I'm going to go to the spreadsheet interface here. So if I hover over that, practice activity entry. Okay. So this is the spreadsheet interface for your dashboard. Now you'll see that the data that's in here, this matches the data that was in, that I put into my cluster earlier, just means proposals, approaches. And again, you can see here, this is highlighted as the current quarter. So it's just going to show you the current quarter data you have. If you want to show all the data you've ever had over all your quarters, just click all quarters here. And that's going to show everything. Again, it's not going to show anything else because I haven't put any other data in, but that's going to show all your data forever. And you can go in and edit this as well. So it's sort of like a, think like a Google Docs spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet. As you edit stuff, it will update and save just as you go. So it's sort of like a dynamic spreadsheet here. So I might want to say, okay, actually that was 4 approaches and that's saved now. So that's a way you can edit your old data. And also you can input data as well. So if you're finding that adding stuff through the cluster is a bit slow, maybe you've got a whole bunch of spreadsheet data that you want to put in all in one big whack, or you want to sort of do a bulk update and you're finding the cluster is just a bit harder to use, and you can just come in here and edit or add things as well. So it's sort of up to you about how you use that. Okay. Just going to quickly look at the chat here, see what things we've got going. Okay. So that's a good question. Can you report on activity level so you can see how many approaches or meetings or proposals you need to make a desired number? So for approaches, meetings, and proposals, the best interface to see that will just be the overview here. So again, it's going to see how many approaches you've made up until the 25 target you have. And then also using this gray line to see whether we're above or below that. However, for sales, we have something what we call the belt projector on the screen here as well. So the belt projector is going to do exactly like you've noted there, which is going to tell you how many sales you need in the next for the remaining days in the month, how many sales you need to go up a belt. It's going to do some smart things and try and show you what the most relevant amount is going to be. So for instance, here it's saying, okay, I need to sell another 120K to reach a white belt. And that's going to show me an example of what this white belt might look on me as well. But also these are actually buttons down the bottom here. So if we click on this one, it will say I need to sell another 30K in the next 10 days for a white belt quarter. And that's that little tab on the end there, your little belt tip. And then finally, this third one is going to show you a white belt month. Now, we don't traditionally talk about belts from a month perspective, but basically what this is saying is if you get a white belt month and then you have 12 white belt months in a row, that will give you a white belt quarter in the a white belt in the end of that 12 months. So it's sort of like a projection tool. It's trying to say, you know, if you did a green belt month, great, do that 12 times, you'll end up with a green belt. So it's a way to project what you might expect to see. So you've got those 3 options there to see what might be the most enticing. So let's go and jump in here and just add some sales and see what it might show us. So let's just do 10K, for instance, today. Okay, white belt month. Alrighty, so now it's telling us, oh, hey, you've got to sell another 20K in the next 10 days to get a white belt quarter. So this is going to update and try and show you what the most relevant thing is to try and motivate you to get to that end thing. So you might find one day that it says, hey, you need an extra $200 to get to the next belt level and the next thing. And that's going to, you know, ideally motivate you to do some approaches, many proposals, you know, try and get those sales in by the end of that month. Now, the reason it says by the end of this month is the way that the belts are calculated, right? So let's imagine we have 12 months in a sort of like 12 calendar months, which, well, we don't have to imagine that, that's the truth, but let's imagine 12 little boxes, and an annual belt is going to be the sales in that 12 months, in those 12 calendar months. So even if we're on the 21st of August, for instance, it's going to be the 21st of August month, the month before that, 12 months prior. So it doesn't actually do it from the 21st. We work on whole calendar months for the belt calculations. Now, when we go from August into September, that sort of selection of belt calculations is going to move over one. So there are going to be some sales at the back end that drop off from the belt calculation, right? Because we're just doing a whole calendar year. to calculate the belt. So you might find that it says, hey, 20K in the next 10 days to get a belt. But then as the month moves on to the next month, some sales drop off the end, and it might say more this, it might say 25,000 because you've lost some of the sales that you did in that first month. So it's sort of this moving 12-month period for your annual belt. Similarly, for the quarter belt, it's a moving 3-month period. So that's just, yeah, sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. So it does, if you click on the belt projector here, it does tell you how those belts are calculated for a little bit more clarity. So you can also click on all these other things and they'll tell you, hey, you can't add data here. You've got to go to your cluster to add that. So you go to your cluster to add the data. Because again, this is an overview. It's summing up all the clusters that are here. Similarly for pink sheets, if you click on here, they'll tell you, hey, go add the pink sheet, deliverables, curriculum, go to your curriculum to do that. And the dashboard streak. Okay. So dashboard streak, if any of you have done Duolingo or something like that, it's a similar type of, yes, Anne, hand up. Do you want to, you just unmute and say hello?
Yeah, sorry. Just before you move
That's
on, Nick,
sure.
just lost me a bit on the belt calculation. So have I got it right that that's a rolling 3-month period, not tied to calendar quarters?
Exactly right. So we use, and so a little bit more detail, the quarterly or the belt tips, the quarterly belts, we do the current month in the previous 2 months. So that's a 3-month period, or the previous 3 months, calendar months, whichever's highest. So we give you a little bit of leeway on the quarterly belt. And that's explained here. So your running belt is calculated from the best of either the previous 3 whole months or this month and the previous 2. So it's still a 3-month calendar 3 months that it calculates that as.
Okay. So that's your best 12 ever and your best 3.
Yep.
In the last 12 months, or?
No, just the current month and the previous 2.
Okay. Got you.
Yeah. Or the previous 3 months, not including the current one. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, that just lost me a minute.
No, that's all good. It's always a little bit complicated getting your head around those ones. So it's not, Good. So again, you can click on curriculum here and take you to the tests. Click on the streak to get some more information on that. Okay. Any questions apart from Ed? You want to maybe just throw a hand up if you have one, or chuck it in the chat there. I'll quickly read through any of these. Okay, let's talk about putting in some past data now, I think. So quickly, we'll just jump back to the spreadsheet interface here. So this is a great place to put in past data because you can just easily choose a date wherever you want to in the past. We'll put that in. You can even type it in as well, if you prefer that. So 12/06/22 and put that data in there. So that allows you to put data into the past. Like I said, you can't add targets or anything for the past because I suppose culturally that doesn't make too much sense because your targets are meant to be sort of what you're aiming for right now. Looking back in the past, the targets, we don't really use them. They're still there, obviously, but we don't use them in any sort of meaningful way. So that's adding past data in there. And I expect probably most people might have had experience doing that during the pre-enrollment when you're sort of putting in all your data to sort of start coming into Central. And again, clicking this all quarters thing will show you all your previous data. So it's not lost when the quarter resets, it is still there. Okay, let's run over to the dashboard graph now. That's not very entertaining looking at this one, so I might just quickly find a different one to look at. Go find the dummy data that I've set up somewhere before. It's a more fun graph. So this is a dummy profile I set up a little while ago, but this is going to give you an example of what a dashboard graph might look like. So when you first land on the dashboard graph here, it's going to have sales selected and accumulated sales. The accumulated sales being this golden bar and the sales here being blue. Obviously, we've got the time across this way. And it's going to show us our belts as well. So the dashboard graph here is a good way of sort of seeing progress, trying to identify trends that you might have personally, see how things have gone historically for you. The idea with this tool is that we can use it for trend analysis and projection. So trends, quite often what we'll see, and if the data that Katie had in immersions, any indication, is that doing the work does work, right? Doing your approaches, meetings, proposals does lead to sales and delivery. Doing your pink sheets does lead to more approaches, meetings, proposals, and sales eventually as well. So let's try and have a look at some of these trends as an example, what you might do. So you might say, okay, let's have a look at sales and our approaches. So we've clicked that on to show our approaches on this graph as well. And I can hover over these and it'll say what you've done, 20 approaches in Jan or 30K sales in September, etc. What I'm looking for here is, as an example, seeing, approaches sort of precluding sales, approaches precluding sales, etc., etc. Now that's a really nice, clear correlation, thinking, okay, if I'm doing approaches, it's leading to meetings, proposals, and I'm getting sales eventually. Now, that's a best case scenario, obviously, so hopefully that looks like that on your dashboard graph, but we'll see how it happens. Everybody's ways of working are different, and the correlation you're going to find are going to be personal as well. So I really implore you to play around with this. So you might say, okay, let's have a look at our meetings. Maybe I'll do more important meetings that are more correlated to sales, so I can turn that on. Maybe I'll do more proposals that make more sense correlated to sales. Maybe I want to have a look at approaches and proposals and see if there's some correlation between the amount of approaches I do versus the proposals I send out. And then maybe there's not a correlation to sales. Does that mean that maybe I need to put some more thought into the proposals and not the approaches? So play around with all these buttons, see if you can find anything interesting that's sort of popping out or happening there. It's a fun tool to play around with. And back to that. So I'm going to show you here, because this profile has a lot more data in it, I think. I'm going to go to the spreadsheet interface, and so the current quarter here, like I said, is showing current quarter data, but I'm going to go look at all quarter data and just show you quickly what that might look like. But basically, it's just a bigger, longer spreadsheet, right? And you can edit all this past data, you can add past data, etc., etc. If you want to delete a row, obviously we've got a little trash can here as well to delete that one. Now, all this data, it does exist in your clusters. So it's not like there's two separate databases or things that are storing the data. It's all just the one thing, just shown in different ways. So you don't have to worry about doubling up, or you don't have to add it in the spreadsheet at the same time as you're adding it in a cluster or whatever. It's all sort of all the same thing, just different ways of you interacting with it. And you can download a practice summary as well, which is sort of a CSV export, which will give you sort of all this information, basically the spreadsheet as a real spreadsheet. Okay, so I think we've gone through most of the things here, a way of typically using the dashboard. For those of you who have come into your dashboard, or do come into your dashboard for your second quarter, you will see, like I said, all your data has quote unquote disappeared, but that just means that we've reset for the next quarter. You might find that you have to go to a cluster and archive it or deactivate it, so it doesn't show up here anymore because you're doing new clusters for the next quarter, and then you might need to go add some new clusters based on your cluster checklists. Ooh, excuse me, and go from there. So that is the dashboard in a quick whip around. And I think it's probably time for Q&A now. So do we want to either throw some things in the chats, or we can just hands up maybe? Entering limits, excluding GST. Okay, yeah. So Melissa, whether we do GST or not. So traditionally we're exclusive of GST. I mean, in a way it's up to you, right? The dashboard is up to you, but we do recommend excluding GST. I mean, the GST is going to have to be paid off anyway. It makes sense from an international perspective, obviously, that they don't have that tax, and so they won't be counting those extra numbers in there as well. So that's traditionally the way we suggest to do that. I think during the pre-enrollment, I think most people are also asked to exclude that as well. Okay, Christopher Miller, do you get a warning if when you're about to end a streak? So Yeah, I didn't go into details about the streak, did I? Okay, I just mentioned it was like Duolingo and that was it, and then moved swiftly along. So let's just quickly chat about the streak again. So the streak is like a Duolingo streak, right? The idea is to get you to come into the dashboard once a day. Go to, I'll open back up this one maybe. Go back to the school, see what people are talking about, comment or like some posts, that kind of thing, and then go into your dashboard and add your activity for the day. And ideally, motivate you to do some activity if you haven't actually done any yet. So an activity for the streak is considered anything you add into any of these. So if you add an approach, meeting, proposal, sale, delivery, that adds to your dashboard streak for the day. If you add a pink sheet, that also adds to your dashboard streak for the day. Now, a streak will stay alive if you do 5 days of activity in a 7-day week from Monday to Sunday. So you've got 2 days you can miss. Traditionally that would be a weekend. Obviously, depending how you work, depending if you're traveling, that kind of thing. The streak will try and account for you going through different time zones as well. So if you're traveling quite a bit and you've missed a day theoretically due to travel, the streak should account for that and understand what you've done. So it's 5 days of activity in that 7-day Monday to Sunday section. As say, for instance, I missed a day, you can click on your streak here and it'll actually tell you, hey, you've missed 1 day, you can miss another one, but if you miss a 3rd day, then you'll lose your streak. So it will give you information about how to keep that streak, and it will show, it'll go orange and it will go red, and then you'll lose it if you miss the final 3rd day of that week. Okay. We don't get any notifications or anything like that at the moment, like emails, for instance, whether you're missing a streak. So partly that's a bit annoying maybe, but we like to think that it's actually motivating you to come into your dashboard to make sure you don't actually lose your streak as well. And you can see you've got a streak leaderboard on the top right here. So we're in the process of rebuilding this, so it actually shows you where you are next to your peers, next to your fellow students in terms of, so for instance, I've got one, this might show me some other students that have 1 streak as well as showing the top performers. So right now it feels a little demotivating, I think, to think, oh no, I've got to do 839 days to try and get ahead of Linda here, and hopefully she fails. And hopefully she doesn't fail, actually. But in the future, it's going to show us the other students around us and see how they're doing. So you're going to have a little game within the people that are sort of playing from when you started, for instance. So that's going to come out very, very soon. Melissa, as well, you mentioned about sales versus delivery. Yes, you are correct in saying the belts are purely based on sales. Delivery is for your own tracking, for your own motivation. It's also nice to see, as you go through the different belts and progress through thought leaders, you'll see that there's, differing ratios between the days looking for work, the days spent selling, the days spent delivering. So as you track that, as you go through your journey through thought leaders, you'll see that those ratios start to shift, and it's interesting to be able to report back on them and see, see how they change and see how that change correlates with the work you're doing, the belts you're going through, and how you feel your quarters are. Okay. Okay. So yeah, hands up or a message in the chat there if you have any other questions. Hopefully this is not too daunting, and like I said, it's one of those things where it feels like a little bit of extra work at the start. But once you get obsessed with the dashboard, fingers crossed, you'll find that it actually starts helping quite a lot. Okay. All right, well, I think that's probably it. There's no other questions here from anybody. So we'll finish it up here. So, going forwards, have fun, try and use the dashboard as much as you can. If you have any specific other questions, feel free to reach out to myself or any of the team. And otherwise, jump into, the school up here, jump into what's on your mind, have a chat, see what other people are saying. get involved. We find certainly the data says, the more the community is incredible, right? So the more you're involved with the community, the more you chat, take part, work on your dashboard, we will see progress from that. So cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, afternoon, evening. And this recording obviously will be available. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day. Thanks a lot.